Once upon a time, there was a group of dads who started playing D&D. This is their story.
Hello and welcome back to D&D with Dads. For us, it's been a minute, but for those of you binge watching the show, this is the next episode. Boom, just like that. We are back, and at the close of the last episode, the group had finally gotten to a point where they were encountering the real giants who rule the mountain. And in the arena, you guys saw some serious combat, but you also put on quite an exciting show, which caught the attention of the cloud giants, who seemed to have the most clout, the most rank, if you will. And they agreed to let you rest and let the other prisoners live. You guys actually get to have a full long rest. The prisoners have been fed and cared for in a fashion that they have not been fed and cared for in quite some time. But you guys now are following this next day. And bear in mind, you have no real sense of what time it is anymore, as there's no outside light kind of at this point. But you have rested for a significant amount of time. So anyone who was injured or wounded, missing spell slots and so forth, you recoup everything. So the next, you're not really sure, morning, day, afternoon. There is a tapping at the big double doors that lead to the hallway that leads to the prisoners' chambers, like a metallic tapping. And you see upon this tapping, like all the prisoners kind of like wake up and start like gathering their things. You see Dak actually also get up and kind of stretch out, and he looks at you and he says, that's the summoning. We're being summoned to the arena. Gather your things. You guys go with the rest of the prisoners. The doors open. The arena is lit once again, magical orbs kind of floating over the arena. And there's this time no one in this seating in the amphitheater. But there is one cloud giant, and that is the cloud giant that spoke with you previously, Va Gnome. And he is standing at the edge of the arena, closest to the hallway where it leads up into the balcony and the exterior concourse. And he looks out over the crowd and he says, "You," and he points to the group of you guys. "It is time for you to see the king who sleeps. Come." And he says, "Rest of you practice." He turns and he starts walking up these giant-sized stairs, which...
Can I insight check him?
Yes.
That'd be a 16.
He seems authentic in his invitation and statement that it is time for you to see the king. There was something odd about the way that he followed up with his directive towards the other prisoners to practice. Not that it was untrue per se, but just something odd about the tone in which he had spoken it. The rest of the prisoners kind of go over to this rack of wooden practice weapons, and they start kind of gathering weapons. And Dak kind of, grabs this long kind of polearm sort of weapon, and he's, he grabs it and he kind of looks back over his shoulder as you guys are following the cloud giant up the stairs. And he smiles at you, Riff, and then he looks to you, Durant, and if you are making eye contact, he waves to you.
I very quickly look away.
And then Riff, you notice that Dak kind of like noticed this and just kind of solemnly nodded, and then kind of turned back to the others and began exercising training.
Riff says, "We'll be back, Dak. Don't worry."
He doesn't seem so much worried as just maybe a little disheartened, but you guys are following the cloud giant Vanom.
Yeah, how close are we to him?
So I mean, he moves in large steps, right? So like he's already 60 feet up and heading through these thick curtains into the exterior concourse.
Right. So Ripper wants to run up and at least get into speaking range and say, Vanom, when are the prisoners to be released to come with us? As you remember, the reward that we asked for in defeating Narquart was the release of the prisoners.
Yes.
Hoping they would come with us at this moment.
This is up to the king. King will decide the time. The agreement was made. It will not be broken. But the time is decided by king.
So I was just curious why you asked the prisoners to start practice. What are they practicing for?
It is sometimes not easy to leave the mountain, even if given freedom.
I'll roll insight too, just to see if he's on the up and up about this. At least saying that there's a chance that they'll get their freedom. 15.
It seems completely truthful.
All right. Very well. We will come with you right now.
Okay. As you get out to the outer concourse, you see that this forms a ring, and one amongst you is very familiar with this, as you, Estroff, remember kind of exploring this area. And you follow the cloud giant and you get to an area where you see another set of elaborate stairs leading up. And you see a guard there. And this time it is a frost giant guard, not the same frost giant as the previous day. He sees Vanom and he steps down and kind of steps to the side. Vanom continues walking up this stairway. And he doesn't turn around to look and see if you guys are following. Is anyone not following? Is anyone doing anything other than following Vanom?
I'm bringing up the rear, just making sure there's nothing else coming behind us.
Okay. As you go up the stairs, those of you who are proficient in Arcana, make a roll.
Not I.
That would be a natural 1.
Uh-oh.
13.
Okay. Humphrey, you 13. So you see as this stairwell goes up, there's like a railing. All this is that ornate stonework of the stone golems, like the architecture and the style. And there's like scroll work on the railing. You notice that the railing itself, as it leads up, has magical runes written on it.
Cool.
You feel that these are active, and you feel like they have something to do with the giants, but you are not quite sure how. You guys go to the next level up. And when you get to this next level up, You find yourselves in a large room. So the stairwell goes up and it opens up into a large rectangular room. This stonework is also immaculate stone giant architecture, but it is entirely not of the mountain. The stonework is like white marble and gold inlay. So it's kind of like it looks like it was imported and kind of decorates the structure. There are huge white marble columns as well. The ceiling in this room is at least 40 feet in height. And these columns go the distance kind of in this long rectangular room from where you come up in the stairs. And there's at the end of the room, you see a huge dais, a huge white marble block. And it's the end of this long corridor, and you see something laying down on top of it. And the something that you see is a huge figure. It is the largest thing that you've ever seen. The figure is draped in a silvery kind of sheet. And I mean silvery like the very thread is silver. And it's almost like luminescent. It almost seems to ripple, even though the sheet itself isn't moving, like the way light kind of moves across it is almost luminescent. And there are huge oil braziers on either of the last columns before this massive white slab on which this giant is laying.
Are there any guards or anything up here?
No. There is no one in this chamber. The cloud giant, upon getting to the top of the stairs, falls to one knee and he bows his head. He
I'll
says,
do likewise.
Yep.
okay.
Riff will also bow.
I'm gonna get lower than everybody else.
Not hard.
That's difficult.
You basically kneel there with Von Gnome in absolute silence. And then you hear the sound of footsteps, like the sound of boots and the heels of boots on the stone, the marble floor. They're not loud like the sound of a giant's footfalls. They're more like yours. And across this massive room, if there were any other sounds in the room, you wouldn't even hear it. But because the room is dead silent, silent as the crypt, if you will, you hear the click clack of heels on the floor. And they're getting closer. And then almost as if magically out from behind one of the huge columns walks a female, an elf woman with like lustrous curly auburn hair that goes down to her chest. And she is wearing a kind of a long flowing dress that is made of the same like silver threads that giant blanket is made of. And she's wearing bejeweled, like just sparkling with jewels, heeled boots. And she's walking towards you. And she walks up to about 30 feet away. She walks up to Von Gnome.
Is she the only one there, or do we hear more boots?
She's the only one there. She walks up about 30 feet in front of Von Gnome.
Riff, when Riff sees her, he basically hasn't taken his eyes off of her the whole time. He's staring through her, basically.
Yeah, so you recognize her Meta moment. Do you recognize her?
No, never met.
Don't.
Was a baby.
There's something about her. There is something about her. And as she looks at all of you, and then she looks at Von Gnome, without raising his eyes still, says, "Steward, I bring the mortals who I spoke of from the arena." And she looks at you all, and she says, "Greetings. I am Akiri Amare. I am the steward of the king who sleeps."
Hi. Durant Mullerkin.
Where are you from, human?
Where do I come from? I can't remember the name of the city.
And you. And she points to Estroff.
Oh, just from the east of here. Isn't it like southeast?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then she looks at Tuco.
Honorable one, this is Tuko Musashi. I'm not quite sure where I'm from, but I was raised with the Sanhedrin. Trained with the Sanhedrin.
She nods. And then she looks at Humphrey.
I'm Humphrey Hubblebottom. I hail from Neverwinter.
You have traveled far.
I've had many adventures.
And she looks at last at Riff. She stares at Riff for a moment. "What do people call you?" she says.
Riff bows. My lady, I am known by several names, as I don't stay in one place too long at a time, but my friends here know me as Riff, for one.
She says, "Von Gnome has brought you here. You seek the favor of the king who sleeps. Many have come here for that. Most have not succeeded. Are you prepared then to have an audience with the king who sleeps?"
I think I speak for all of us when I say yes. Yes, we are.
Are there any requirements that we must follow?
She says, "A wise question. The king will not speak directly to you, because if he did, his very voice would rend the flesh from your bones. He will speak to you through your minds. You will answer, not with your mouths, but with your minds. And you will all be able to hear each other in his mind. There are no rules, but I would give you the advice of speaking honestly with the king. And remember that he is an old, wise, and powerful king. Do you have any questions?
Will you be with us in his mind?
She says, "I am usually not, but if the king decides to bring me, then he will."
One question for you. Have you heard of Alyssa Hunaduthis?
I have not heard of this name, though I have been in the mountain for many years now.
She writes of dragons. She is well versed in her wisdom and knowledge.
The king may
Something that I
know.
respect.
The king may know then, for he is also well versed in dragons.
Riff finally kind of breaks out of it a little bit. He's not quite so stunned as at first, and kind of looks at the guys and says, "Do you remember when we were coming up through the mountains and we were hearing like a voice on the wind? We kind of thought it was maybe the Mountain King calling to us. Do you guys remember that?
Didn't it come with a breeze?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that would be true based on what Akira said." Riff turns to Akira and says, "Dear lady, did you hear the wind blow? And did you know our way here lay on the whispering wind?"
I did.
It was you, wasn't it?
It was not. What you heard was the restful breathing of the king. I hear it.
He snores very loudly.
She turns over her shoulder and looks down the 150-foot long length of this room towards the end. And she says, "Behind the dais, you will see stairs that will lead you to the king. Though he sleeps, he will know you are there, and he will enter your minds and speak with you. You will share what it is that you want from the king, and he will communicate to you."
But we still have control of our bodies while we are speaking with the king.
Of course. He will not control your minds. He will merely speak with you through your minds.
Is there anything that might help us come across as, I don't know, as less threatening and more as more as humble, seeking out his wisdom? Does he like music? Would that help as we approach, or anything like that?
Yes.
Any
She
favorite tunes, genres?
He says, "I suppose that depends on the mood that he's in, but you will soon see."
All right.
Do many others hear the call of the king on the winds?
No. Some very few. Is there anything else that you would ask of me? Or are you ready now to have your audience with the king?
Would we be able to talk with you again after we are done speaking with the king?
She says, "That is a curious question. In truth, I do not have the answer. I do not know the answer. It will depend on your audience with the king, whether or not the king agrees to anything with you, whether or not you live or die. All of those things could factor into the answer."
Oh,
She seems very nonchalant about this statement, like it's just a simple fact.
Riff says, "I believe we're ready to go, dear lady," and he bows deep again.
She says, "Then you will walk to the other side of the dais, and there you will see a set of stairs that will ascend to the dais. You will ascend those stairs and you will arrive at the landing. You will be quite close to the king, and he will know that you are there, even in his sleep.
Why does the king sleep?
She looks at you. And she says, well, there are places that he can go when he sleeps that he cannot go with that body.
Is he ever awake?
He wakes. It has been many, many, many centuries.
We heard rumors that the reasons he awake is when he has the realm of man needs him, or he needs something of the world of man. Is that still the case, or is he able to interact with other people here besides you?
She says, you are quite wise, both of you. She says, yes, there are times where when he is needed, he will awaken. He will leave the mountain. But it has been a very long time. Most matters of men are inconsequential.
Can you tell us about the last time he woke up?
There was a sundering of all things magical. He awoke in order to help rectify that which was changed prematurely.
Were you here that time? That last time that he woke up, many centuries ago?
No, I have only been here for the blink of an eye in the span of the king's lifetime. Only a few decades.
How do people get called to serve as the steward of the king?
She says, well, everyone's story is different. In my case, I did not hear his voice as the wind blew. I felt everything and then nothing. I was in the midst of a great battle. I ascended a tree in order to have a higher vantage with my bow. And as the battle raged on, so too did the weather, and terrible storms, rain so thick that you could not see but 5 feet in front of you. And yet, unlike all of my comrades, I was somehow able to perceive through this, my arrows firing through the sheets of rain as if they did not exist. And when at last, through my own battle prowess, was I able to turn the tides, I was struck by an awesome light, a bolt of lightning. I felt everything, and then I felt nothing. And she looks around, and then I was here.
Riff, remembering what Dak had told him about the lightning strike, and that his mother had not died as he thought. Like the human part of Riff is just like wanting to scream out, "Mother!" But like sort of the elf side is very nonchalant. It's kind of won over. Probably gets that from his mom apparently, and he's like acting interested, but he doesn't want to let on who he is for real.
Zuko says,
Yeah.
Mistress, below there are many slaves, people that are here against their will. Are you here according to your will, or would you prefer to be somewhere else?
I am here by choice, though I did not realize it at the time. Sometimes Sometimes things occur that we do not understand initially. And only through the passage of time do we come to understand why they happened.
What of your previous life? Do you miss any things from your previous life?
Make an insight check.
And yeah, I want an insight checker just for her see if she is telling the truth about whether she is here on her own will or not. Yeah. 11.
16.
Seems to be telling the truth on all accounts. When you ask the question about whether or not she misses anything about her old life, there is an ever so slight tell of a little bit of emotion. And then it's quickly kind of shut down, and she says, I don't know that my old life misses me.
Mistress, of the slaves down below, when we talked to them as we were sleeping, preparing, some of them mentioned that they had a desire to come here, but were not allowed. Do you know why that might be? Even now that once we were allowed, they were, Van Gnome refused their request to come with us.
The king will decide. If you court the king and beseech his blessing, he will perhaps give you an offer that you will make a decision about. Your choices will determine how those others are freed. But if Van Gnome gave his word that they would be freed, then they will be. The method of how will be determined by your audience with the Sleeping King.
Oh, great. Now we have to worry about their lives too.
It is not a worry, it is an honor.
She looks up at Van Gnome, who at this point has still not raised his eyes. And she says in Giant, for any of you that speak it, she says in Giant, she says, you may go now. And he bows and he stands and turns and walks down the stairs. She says, come, follow me. And she turns and begins walking. Again, not looking back to see if you're following. You hear the like kind of confident and yet not rushed pace of her walk as her bejeweled boots click on the marble floors, like kind of echoing through the emptiness of this massive chamber.
While we're walking up, I want to whisper to Durant, Master Malarkin, I believe you told a story once around the Wizard's Tower. There was a forest or something that was growing unnaturally. I wonder if this may be similar to the reason that the king awoke the last time. Just a thought.
It is very possible. The way I recall it, the giant, the king who sleeps, has negotiated with the mage who never dies.
As you guys go closer, now you basically get up to this massive pedestal, okay? And it's like staring at a 20-foot stone house. Like that's how tall it is, right? Like you're getting closer to it and you're looking up and you see the massive silver threaded blanket that is over the king's body laying on this massive thing. She leads you around to the back of it, and the oil braziers are kind of burning and flickering, and they kind of cast this strange, moving kind of light over the blanket. You go around to the back and you see that there are, in fact, medium-sized humanoid white marble stairs that ascend towards the top of this thing. The problem is that they go about 10 feet in the air and then they stop. And she gestures to the stairwell and she says, "Your audience with the king awaits."
This seems like a job for an invisible wizard who can fly.
I'm going to have confidence that I'm going to start climbing the steps to see what happens when I get to the top of the 10 feet.
Okay. You continue walking. Every step that Tuco takes reveals a stair.
I waved to everyone. Come on, it is safe.
But it doesn't. The stairs do not appear until after they are stepped on, and they only stay illuminated for about 2 seconds after your foot gets off of them. Do the rest of you go up?
I keep climbing.
Okay.
Durant will bring up the rear. We'll go
I'm going to hurry up, and I'm going to try to step on them before they disappear after him.
Okay. Every one of the stairs, though invisible, is just as solid as the first 10 that you walked up. And you ascend these stairs, and at the top, they gently curve to the top of the white marble slab. And you guys see that you are at basically the neck and the head of the king who sleeps.
Tuco's gonna kneel down, bow his head.
What you see is a massive humanoid figure with kind of like alabaster skin, but almost with like a slight blue tinge to it. Long white hair and a long white beard that kind of is like smoothly laid out. And ever so imperceptibly, you see the massive chest rise. And then lower. And this is like a heartbeat of like once every like 20 seconds. Like you're like, it is clearly a deep sleep state that this giant is in. You feel, as you are this close, you feel on the exhales, cool air, like colder than the room that you're in.
Does Tuco, based on his knowledge of giants, know what type of giant?
This is absolutely a storm giant. And you're pretty sure that this is much bigger than a storm giant normally is. You've never seen a storm giant, but you've heard. This is a big storm giant.
Riff comes up and sort of comes in next to Tuco, kneels down, and remembers along the way a couple of times where he'd sort of felt his birthmark on the back of his neck, where it had maybe coincidentally the same time where he felt the wind calling to him. And so as he sits there, he puts his hand on his neck, kind of puts his hand on one of Tuco's shoulders and just concentrates on sort of remembering what that wind and that sound was like, and tries to just open up himself to any communication that may or may not come from the sleeping king.
As you touch your mark, everything turns very bright to the point where you can't see anything. You find yourself in a white room. You can't see any floors, walls, or ceilings. It's almost as if you're floating, but your feet feel like they're on solid ground. But there is nothing else in this room.
I don't have my hand on Tuco's shoulder anymore.
Nope. The rest of you see Riff disappear.
Oh, good God.
You saw him reach out and touch Tuco's shoulder, and you saw him like rub his neck, and then he disappeared.
Tuco's going to jump up, put his hands on his swords without drawing them, and look around and see if he can see anything where he might have gone, or trapdoors or anything like that.
Nope.
I'm going to back away from Tuco and go, don't you touch me.
Durant will maneuver around and try to replicate what Riff did.
Describe what you do.
So I'll kneel and I'll touch the back of my neck in a similar fashion, where I felt the wind before.
Yeah, you immediately
As I see
disappear.
him doing that, I'm going to concentrate on watching him and looking for any kind of threat.
Okay. Durant, you immediately disappear. You find yourself in the White Room next to Riff.
All right. Knowing that Tuco didn't teleport people, I'm going to go ahead and kneel.
Okay. And what do you do?
I don't think I would have noticed in my fear yet, so I'm just kneeling.
You're just kneeling?
Yeah.
What are you looking at while you're kneeling, and what are you thinking about?
Right now, I'm looking where they disappeared, at Tuco, making sure, and then at the king who sleeps.
Okay.
I'm thinking about not dying and wondering where they went.
The minute that you kneel and you look up at the king who sleeps and you think about not dying and wondering where they went, you disappear.
Did I see him?
Humphrey and Tuco are the last people.
Did I see him look at the king before he disappeared?
Yep. You saw him kneel. You saw him kind of look around, and then you looked up at the king, and he like disappeared.
I guess I'd do the same thing.
You kneel. You
Yeah.
look up at the king. What are you thinking about?
I'm thinking, where the hell did everybody else go?
You
How did I-
immediately disappear.
Okay.
And then once everyone else is gone, I'm going to follow suit, kneel down, and think about my friends and being with the giant.
Okay. You all find yourself in the white limbo. There are no walls that are discernible, no floors or ceiling. You could be floating, but you feel like your feet are on solid ground. You can see each other. Everything that you had before you appeared here with you is with you.
Still can't see the giant?
No.
Do we hear each other's thoughts yet?
You try communicating. Go ahead.
Hello, hello, hello.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll just think it's good to see you again to
Yep.
Tuco.
You guys talk to each other, and you can hear each other.
Like through our minds or with our mouth?
You're in this room, and you see, like, you saw Humphrey's lips move, and you heard him.
I want to speak in giant. Honorable King, we humbly request an audience in giant.
I am listening. You hear. All of you hear this.
In giant or in common?
No,
Or does it matter?
you just seem to understand it somehow.
Riff whispers, that's good. Keep going. Keep going like that. That's good.
My master is quite skilled, and he desires to play some entertainment for you. Would that be insulting, or would that be okay? Just something to start off our conversation.
I would like that very much. Proceed.
Roll your performance.
Presumably he's talking about me.
Yeah, I look over at the riff and
Like, how many masters has he got?
What do you guys think? Bagpipes?
Yes.
Pan flute?
Bagpipes.
That could work.
Pan flute, but I think I've messed everything up, so I'm gonna rely on you.
Soothing melodies of the bagpipes.
Ladies and gentlemen and sleeping kings, the soothing tones of Riff Maelstrom, the bagpipes. Am I rolling performance?
You are.
Okay.
You are indeed.
Let's see what's the plus on that. I hope it's a good one. 21.
You play an honorable march, and upon the completion of it, you hear or seem to hear the voice again that says, "Well done. That was most entertaining. Why are you here?"
We seek your advice and perhaps some help. And my friend Riff and I were both called by your winds.
It's true.
Both of you are marked.
What does it mean to be marked?
I took something from you. I owe you a debt. Arik, I took your mother. She serves me now. My steward is your mother, Akiri.
Why her?
It was necessary to fulfill something that would happen.
How long will she serve you?
That remains to be seen.
When you said you took something from us and you owe us a debt, who is to choose the payment of the debt, you or us, or something else?
You are here. You are going to ask me for something. The debt will be paid one way or another. Durant Malarkin, I took something from you.
What? What did you take from me?
I took your childhood and a proper father.
And for a second, everyone sees Durant kind of fight back a tear.
It was necessary to fulfill something that would happen.
Is it something yet to be?
Yes.
Then I know better than to ask.
Estroff Pinebark, I owe you
Yes.
nothing. I owe you nothing.
Fair enough.
But I do owe your great-grandmother something.
What?
Your great-grandmother was a keeper of the natural order. Centuries ago, she was the leader of a group of forest gnomes to the north of here, who for centuries had maintained the natural order. I took away her land so that men could build upon it. I took away her forest. It became something which was an abomination. Your people had to leave.
Where he's talking about, is that the forest with the Mage Tower? That's
Yes.
to the north, right?
You're asking yourself that question in your head, and then all of you hear him say, yes. Your people once kept the forests north of my mountain. That which became the flooded forest. It was taken from you.
Are you the reason it became flooded?
I am not, but I am the reason why your people had to leave. I traded your people's land for something.
I feel this might be somewhat parallel to the reasons we are here. I knew nothing of the forest before, being that you took it away from us. But we did stumble upon a tower. Does it sound familiar?
Yes. Humphrey Humblebottom.
Yep.
I have taken something away from you.
I'd like it back.
We will see. Perhaps it will be possible for you to have it back. But I took away the joy of your remaining years. It was I who brought you here.
So, you know why we are here then?
Of course. Just as I know that TopoMusicale serves you unknowingly, who are serving me. And yet I owe a debt to TopoMusicale. I was in need of a master swordsman, one who could execute my will, so to speak. I took your master, Musicale. I turned him into something that he would not have normally been, to serve my needs.
Is that his will? To
No,
serve your needs?
it was not. I stripped him of the very soul that he had. I made him a monster to serve my will.
That is concerning. I would like to know more about the dire need to do this, such a terrible thing.
You will know what I tell you.
Yes,
You will also know that I know why you are here. All of you, why you are here.
Will you help us?
I will honor the debt that is owed to you.
I think ultimately we're helping him. And I'm okay with that.
Okay. So how do we get inside the Mage Tower?
Mage who never dies constructed a tower unlike anything created on this realm, because in part it is not on this realm. There are ways to enter it from this realm, but those are far beyond your ken. And so I will grant you my favor, and I will provide you with a means of entering the tower. Long ago, I constructed a maze that would allow me or those who served me to enter the tower. You will enter the maze. Successfully find your way through the maze, and you will find yourself at what you desire in the Mage's Tower.
What dangers await us in the maze?
The dangers. What dangers do you think would await you in a maze that leads to a tower built by an undying mage?
Minotaurs, mostly.
We'll need some string.
Right. Is there anything that you can provide to us to assist us with our journey?
Yes. Akiri will give you each 3 items.
As you know,
Each one of your requests. Each one of your requests must be worded carefully. If the wording is not correct, then you will not get the item which you seek.
Why?
Note that I will tell you this. You cannot request a person, for a person is not an item. Unless that person no longer lives, then they become a thing. Know that. Be careful in your requests. Once each of you has your 3 items, then call upon my name, and I will bring you to the maze.
What is your name?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
You hear a sound in your minds, but the sound does not translate into words. Try as you might, your mouth can't replicate the sound. When you think of that sound, you could think it in your mind, but your mouth can't say the word.
Ah, simple enough.
Sire, the items the boons that you will give us, is that 3 requests and each request is an item, or is our request a single request that all 3 items are included with?
You hear a deep inhale and then an exhale, and the exhale is such forceful wind that each one of you has to close your eyes. Like, it's like if you stuck your head out of a car going 90 miles an hour. Like, the sheer intensity of the wind forces you to close your eyes. And when you can open them again, when the wind stops and you open them again, you are once again kneeling exactly where you were before you were teleported into the White Room. And the Sleeping King is right in front of you, and now so is Akiri.
Ah, man, I wanted to ask how to kill the freaking mage. Okay.
Will we get requests?
He says, what did he say? Is he granting you his favor?
yes.
He
We
is
are
trying
to-
to help us to get into the Mage Tower through his maze, and he is, from what I understand, granting us each 3 items based off of our request.
She nods.
But I do not understand much more than that. And I don't know if you are familiar with this, if this ever happened before.
Once, recently, when Phalor won the tournament.
One thing we failed to ask the king was about the slaves being freed.
Did he tell you what would happen when you completed the task? What did he say?
We would be at the Mage's Tower.
Then all will be revealed.
He also said that our request cannot be for a living being, only that which does not live, unless that living thing would then become not alive.
She says, yes, he is quite specific when it comes to the wording of these things. If you were, for example, to name a person, an ally, that person would appear here as a corpse.
So we should be really careful on how we ask for the 5 items then.
The 3 items. Each one of you is entitled
That's right.
3.
So do we have
She looks at Estroff and she says, you, what is your item?
I would like
Pick your
the
first item.
guidance. I would like the guidance of my great grandmother.
She says, you are a crafty little gnome, aren't you? And
Try.
you see she walks over to where the edge of the silvery blanket lays over the shoulders, the naked shoulders of the king who sleeps, and she reaches in and she pulls out a diadem, like a little like princess crown. And she brings it over and hands it to you. And she beckons you to take it and wear it.
So I take it and I put it all gingerly, and I feel pretty.
Oh, Prince of Estroff.
Yep.
Pretty.
Oh, so pretty.
She looks at Durant.
I would like, if it can be granted, the imagination of a child.
Crap, she's gonna give you Play-Doh.
He looks at Durant very suspiciously, and she goes over to the blanket, and you notice when she lifts it up, she's almost scared to reach in, and she reaches something, and then she like has like an expression of relief comes over her face, and she comes out with like a hunk of very malleable clay. And she kind of squeezes it a little bit, and she walks over and hands you the clay.
I will take the clay and I will hold it.
She points to Riff.
Yeah, I was really hoping we would be able to sleep on this and really think of some good stuff. But that's okay. I had a very wise and powerful mother, I hear is a very great warrior. I would love to have something powerful of hers that would greatly assist me on this task.
She walks over towards the blanket and reaches her hand in blindly, and she grasps at something, and then she reaches her other hand in and grasps, and she pulls out a bow and a quiver, but there's no arrows in the quiver. And she looks at the bow, and it's almost in shock, and she looks at the leather quiver, and it has like stamping work in it, and she looks at them both, and then she looks at you and she says, Why do you say that your mother possessed these things? And then you see an expression come over her face, a complete change as a realization comes over her. And her hands like literally just let go, and the wooden bow like hits the white marble and kind of clangs back and forth a bit, and the quiver just hits the ground with a padded silence, and her hands drop to her sides, and she just kind of stares off. She like stares at the white marble floor. And after about 10 seconds of silence, she looks up and she looks at you and she says, "Are you my son, the son of Dak?"
You were taken from us, dear lady, when I was but a baby.
Is Dak the same one that we saw as a prisoner?
She looks at Tuco and she looks back at you and she says, "Dak is here? He's in the arena?"
He was not allowed to come. He wanted to.
Yes. Dak finally opened up to me about a great many things. And he actually let me know that you were here.
You see her lip like quivering, and she looks at, and her throat kind of becomes tight, and she says, I do not know what to say." She says,
Oh God, hug him already.
She says, "You are a man. How long has it been?"
About 40 years. Dak left me with Estroff and his kin to help raise me for a few years. So I got off to a good start, as you can imagine.
She walks over and picks up the bow and the quiver, and then she walks over to you and holding one of those things in each of her hands, she embraces you in a hug and pulls you tightly.
Oh, beautiful.
And I'm going to say, know that your son is safe. He has a brother.
She looks curiously. You see, I'm going to have the rest. Why don't all of you guys make a perception check?
Got a nat 20
Nat 20.
plus 3. Oh, that's 2 nat 20s.
3. I got a nat 22.
You gotta be kidding me.
24.
We're
All right.
all seeing this.
We won D&D.
You guys,
Yeah, right.
you guys notice that when she
23.
like finishes embracing Riff, you notice that she like leaned in and it looked like she kind of like gave him a kiss on the cheek. And then she hands him this longbow and this quiver. And then she takes a few steps back, and you notice she gently just wipes a tear from her cheek. And then she looks at Tuco and she says, "What item do you seek?"
Mistress, I have lost many things in my life. Many things were taken from me. When I was but a child, my parents, I was only maybe 3, were all killed. And I was left to fend for myself in the streets. And a Senator Master came and found me and took me under his wing and trained me. But before my training was done, he was also taken to do the bidding of your master. These may seem to be of hard things, but I have found that this difficulty has given me more strength than what I had before. So I do not ask anything for myself. All I ask is that I am able to protect others and to live honorably.
She kind of has an uncertain look. She goes over to the large blanket and she reaches in and she comes out with a pair of what look like black metal bracers. And she comes over to you and she fastens them around your wrists. You examine them and you notice that each one of these black metal bracers bears the emblem of your master's plan. She looks at Humphrey.
I would like an object that can allow myself and my party to travel undetected without any harm able to come to us, undetected by normal and from magical abilities as well.
You see there's a look of abject terror over her face.
Great.
And she turns slowly and cautiously reaches under the blanket. And then she comes out with a small crystal orb. It's just clear glass. And she hands it to you.
Okay.
It's about the size of like a 8-ball.
I assume you mean pool?
Yes. She turns back to Estra and she says, your second item.
I would like to know when we can trust someone.
She turns. She goes into the blanket and she comes out with a pair of dainty spectacles and she hands them to you.
I put them on along with my diadem.
You're
looking like a
gorgeous.
very eccentric old lady.
Yep. Next will be a wig of revealing or something. I don't know.
She turns to Durant then.
I seek the protection of a mother's love.
She turns, reaches into the blanket and comes out with a necklace. It looks like a very simple necklace with a leather cord and maybe like a little copper heart at the end. And she hands you this necklace.
I will attempt to put it on with clay in my hands. Let's see how that goes.
She turns to Riff and she says, your second object, my son.
Would it be a mistake to ask for that blanket over there? You keep pulling stuff from.
She says, you could not carry that blanket, but it is made of true silver. Would you seek to have your own?
I'll keep that in mind. But actually, I'd like to have something that was lost to Dak, to my father, that he would hold as his most, I guess, useful possession, let's say. But he no longer has it for one reason or the other.
She looks confused. She says, she goes over to the blanket and reaches in, and you see she's like trying to reach around, and she turns back around to you and she says, "You must phrase your question differently." She said, "Nothing is here."
I mean, yes, I would love one of those blankets like that of my own, the silvery blanket.
She reaches in and she pulls one out, and it's big. Like you could put it completely around yourself. It's like a king size blanket.
I feel like this cloud giant guy, the King of Neverseas, is basically a god.
She says, "And Tuco."
One of the things I have been seeking in my journey, I believe, is comradeship, friends. And I have started to develop that with these around me. But I find when I am away from them, I am lonely. What I would seek would be a way to stay in communication with them, even over long distances.
She turns and reaches in and pulls out a wooden box. A small wooden box. And it's hinged as if it opens. On the outside of the box, you see squares, alternating light and dark on both sides of the box, top and bottom.
Can I open it? It is beautiful.
She just nods.
I try and lift the lid and look inside.
When you open it, you hear a rattling, and you see a bunch of chess pieces. What is interesting is that I have to count. Several of the chess pieces are not normal chess pieces. They bear a likeness. As you study them, you see that there are these wooden chess pieces that represent Durant, Humphrey, Riff, Estroff, and then there's another small one that you realize is Blingo, the goblin. Ooh. And then there's another one that looks like kind of like a little plant.
I show it to Estroff. And does this remind you of anything?
Oh, you've even got a little twig.
Looks like the party is back together again. Thank you much, my lady. I will treasure this.
She looks at Humphrey.
I would like a device that allows me to temporarily stop time for all but myself, that I am able to use and reuse, and that I choose when time stops and when it resumes.
She has a distinct, again, slightly terrified look. And she's, you see she walks over to the blanket, and this time you see she closes her eyes as if she's like afraid of what she's gonna find. She reaches in very slowly and carefully, and you see her go like, ow. And she pulls her hand out, and there's like a spot of blood on her hand. And she looks in and she goes, oh. And she reaches in and she pulls out this small metal disc. And at the center of the disc is a metal spike. And from that metal spike are two long parts that are on the disc. And you see as she hands it to you that it seems to be that this disc is somehow moving, that there's something inside of it that ever so slightly the longer arm like moves. And then some time goes by and then it moves. Basically, she hands you a clock, a timepiece.
Okay.
Riff slightly glares at Humphrey for making his mom get stabbed.
She looks back at Astroff and she says, your third and final request from the king who sleeps.
I think I would like a wine bottle that, no matter how much I pour, it remains full.
An ever full bottle.
Yes.
She smiles. She reaches in and pulls it out immediately. And she hands it to you.
And with my glasses and diadem, I chug a little bit.
It's full of vinegar.
It's without a doubt the best wine you've ever had. Hands down. She looks at Durant.
I seek the wisdom of an aged father.
She nods. She reaches into the blankets. And she pulls out a scarf. And it looks like it was knitted long ago, but it seems still very, like it looks old, but it's very sturdy. And she hands it to you.
Approximately how long is it?
It's kind of like Doctor Who long. It's like a 6-foot scarf. Like you could quadruple wrap it around yourself and have it just, you could make it into a head wrap. Like it's pretty epic.
I'm wrapping it around myself and allowing it to drape.
Dr. Durant.
She looks at Riff and she's like, your final request, my son.
Mother, I've become something of a performer in my years on the road and doing a lot of traveling. And I feel like, although my instruments still serve me fairly well, if there were to be some way to get a more exquisite instrument that I could start learning to use, and maybe it even be an instrument that as I play it, when I play it well, it could help me to soothe even the most fierce enemy, and maybe even control somebody to help us out instead of trying to harm us. If there was an instrument like that I could play.
She nods and she reaches in and pulls out a, not huge, but a modest size leather bag case. It's kind of like a hard leather case with a strap. And she sets it down at your feet. You unfasten the leather fastens and open it up, and inside is a not a full-sized harp, but a petite harp. The strings are silver, like the same kind of thread that's in your robe is what's the strings are made of. She looks to Tuco and she says, your final request.
My lady, I have asked for the ability to protect my friends, the ability to communicate with my friends. But as your son pointed out, he, like all of us, are travelers, loners. I think that what we all would like would be able to find our home. So if there would be a way for all of us to return to our homes at need, that would be the best thing.
She nods and she walks over to the blanket and she reaches in and she pulls out a pair of these leather boots. And you notice that they are encrusted with gems.
Oh,
And
please let them be ruby.
They are. They're red gems. And she hands them to you.
There's no place like home.
I don't think we're in Kansas anymore, Tuco.
I was trying to hold it in. So she hands you. They're not ruby slippers. They're manly boots.
Of redness.
They're still slip-on though, huh?
Yeah,
That's right.
they're totally slip on. She looks at Humphrey, and she kind of cringes. She's like, "Your final request, wizard?"
I would like
A bag
I
of
would-
raisins.
a bag of raisins. No, I would like an object to help me kill or help us kill the mage who never dies.
She again, with extreme reluctance and caution, reaches in, and she's like, "Oh," and she pulls out a hammer, not a war hammer, like a simple carpenter's hammer. She like looks at it, and even she seems like perplexed, and she's like, "Huh," and she hands you this hammer. It has a very plain wooden handle, like it just looks like something that you would see in like a shopkeeper's place.
Thank you.
What brand?
He's a craftsman.
It is a simple wooden handled hammer. She looks at all of you and she says, I hope that you take some time to understand the gifts that you have requested. Each one of you have requested something special, and each of these gifts from the Sleeping King is indeed special. And she looks at Riff. Her eyes look at Riff while she's kind of talking to all of you. And she says, use them well. Use them wisely. And may the gods watch over you on your quest. When you are ready, simply think of the name that he gave you, and he will lead you to the maze. And she looks at Riff and she says, I hope this will not be the last time that I see you. And that is where we'll end this episode of D&D with Dads. Make sure y'all tune in for the next exciting episode as the party enters the maze of the Sleeping King. Until next time, thank you all for your support. Thank you, as always, to my patrons and subscribers. We will see you on the next episode. Peace out.
Well, hello, and welcome to Bill Allen World. I am Wizzy, the Wizard. I'm back once again to remind you to subscribe and click on the notifications button, and also watch videos that are over there. Tune in to the next episode of whatever show you are just watching, and watch other shows featuring Bill. He made me say that because he's a narcissist. Okay, bye.